the Chapter 1 podcast, your inside look at the people powering Charlotte's business scene. Real stories, real entrepreneurs right here in the Queen City. Today we're here with David Cohen, or Dave Cohen, whichever you'd prefer, with HealthMarkets. And we're excited to have you on the show, Dave. Let's start at Chapter 1. How did you make your way to Charlotte?
Well, let's see. I grew up in South Florida, in Boca Raton. And I lived there until I was about 17 when I was ready to get my first apartment. And the reality of the rent prices set in real quick. I had my stepdad at the time who was in poor health and couldn't handle the summers in Florida. He had just passed away. So, my mom had an extra house up here that she was looking to get rid of anyways. So went up with a few of my buddies and had a 4-bedroom house for about $600 a month.
That's the way to do it, man.
You know, it was 30 minutes from anything, and that was rough coming from the suburbs of South Florida where you don't have to drive more than 5 minutes to go anywhere. So it wore me out pretty quick, and I wanted to get a little closer to Mooresville. That's where I moved up to in the first place. So that was that was almost 20 years ago now.
Wow. I'm born and raised in Miami, so I'm a South Florida guy myself. I know how it is. Beautiful, but then you're like, oh, living there, the prices is
I don't
tough.
miss the hurricanes. I don't miss the heat. But,
I'm a hot weather guy, so for me, the Charlotte is an Arctic tundra, but I've weathered it. I like it. So tell me about your kind of just like professional life. Where did it start? Did it start back in South Florida? Did you start once you moved here? What was your first job?
Sure. I got started in the restaurant industry. Right?
Oh, cool.
Serving, bartending, that sort of thing. I did that right up until about my mid-20s, and I got the sort of urge to say, okay, well, I have to find a real job, right? Not that there's anything wrong with waiting tables. I just didn't see a long-term future in it.
Sure.
So I decided to give the car business a shot, which is where my dad...
Brave.
Yeah. I was going in the family business.
There you go.
And, he was a finance manager, so he did pretty well for himself. But, of course, I had to start as a salesman, which was a...
Car salesman.
Pretty miserable job.
People love you guys, right?
Oh, yeah. No, it was one of the only jobs I ever had where I didn't want to tell people what I did, But... it was a very insightful experience into sales and the sales mindset and how to deal with customers and that sort of thing, and also the sort of predatory aspect of it, which was uncomfortable for me. That was the reason that I ended up getting out of the car business, because I didn't like that part of it.
Yeah.
But yeah, that led me into the health insurance business. That was about 10 years ago when I got started with that. And I mean, when I talk about predatory, I had some bad experiences on the front end of that informed where I'm at now. But yeah, I've been doing that for about 10 years. I started in Florida and continued it up here.
Awesome, man. So tell me where you're at now so HealthMarkets is your company?
No, HealthMarkets is actually a subsidiary of United Healthcare, which is, like saying that water is a subsidiary of the ocean, right? Like United Healthcare owns everything. But I'm an independent agent. I actually say I'm a broker, right? Because I represent the client and not the insurance company. From my perspective, I'm more of an advocate. So, what I do is help people navigate the scene of health insurance and dental and vision and stuff. I collect all their information, figure out exactly what's motivating them, what they're looking for, what their needs are, and put together the best solution for them, and then be there afterwards to make sure that if they have any customer service needs or anything, I'm just one phone call away. They don't have to deal with somebody, over in Malaysia that's reading off a script that can barely knows what's going on. So, I try and take I carried over that service mindset from the restaurant industry, right?
So what did it start as far as like marketing and getting clients? Because I think that's what people think of when they think of, starting my own thing. Okay, I have this idea, or I have this thing, or I think I'd be good at selling whatever. But how do you find those people? How did that work for you?
Yeah, that's always the challenge, right? Still to this day is how do you get the customers? And it's interesting in the health insurance industry specifically, because there's an entire industry around lead generation, for collecting prospective clients for health insurance agents to market to. And it's a messy business because a lot of these websites that you purchase leads from, they kind of surreptitiously collect the information from people without their knowledge. Somebody's just looking for a quote. See, I want to see what it would cost, and they have to put in their zip code and maybe ask you for an email address. And you just check a box, you don't even think about it. And then before you know it, you're getting 100 phone calls.
It's the worst.
Yeah. So that's where I started it. And that wore me out because, you're basically a telemarketer at that point. And if you've ever been on the other side of those calls, Yeah, it's not fun, you know. And I'm sympathetic because I'm not the happiest person when I get spam calls either. So
Sure.
I try not to take it personally when people get upset with me. But you know, I couldn't do it. I couldn't do that for very long. I ended up working for a remote agency up in Pennsylvania called Ideal Concepts, where I was just sitting in my living room on my computer, and they would just pump phone calls in my headset. I mean, I was taking like 150 a day.
Wow.
But at least I didn't have to dial, you know, it would just pop in a phone call when somebody picked up. And, you know, that a lot of the time you're just sitting there minding your own business and somebody picks up and they start yelling at you. You know, I told you guys 20 times to stop calling. I'm like, whoa, man, I have no idea what's going on here. You know, so that really took a toll on my mental health. And that was right after COVID, right? I was living in Indiana for a little while because that's where my ex-wife was from, and we had split up, and I moved back to North Carolina. So I kind of like had to restart my social network and everything. I didn't really know anybody. So working from home, you don't really realize how much you rely on a work atmosphere for socialization. That set in for me real quick. So I actually took a step back from health insurance for a little bit, and I got a side job at a Bonefish Grill, you know, just a couple days a week to get out of the house. And then I met the guy that owns the agency that I work for now, that I work under. And, you know, he offered me a lot more independence, right? Like, we'll contract you, we'll help you with all the paperwork and the compliance and things like that, which is a lot, especially for anything that you're dealing with the government. Mm-hmm. But you can do whatever you want. Nobody's going to be looking over your shoulder. Nobody's going to be looking at key performance indicators or anything like that. So that's given me a lot more autonomy, which has been great.
So how has it been kind of distinguishing yourself between other, you know, health insurance brokers out there that are doing similar things? What is it that you would say you could bring to the table that makes you unique?
It's the customer service side, right? Because anybody can help you choose a plan. But my main thing is that I'm not motivated by commission, right? I want to do what's right for my clients so that I can keep them long term. And honestly, like, from my very first experience in the health insurance industry, I was working customer service at an agency that was kind of not representing things properly to people. And I was dealing with a lot of the fallout from that. You know, people calling me, standing in line at the pharmacy saying, I'm trying to pick up my insulin. And the insurance agent that I bought the plan from told me it was going to be covered. And now they're telling me $500, you know? So I don't want to put anybody in that position. So not only do I help you choose a plan that's right for you up front, but after the fact, if you need help with pre-authorizations or finding a doctor in network, or you got a bill that you thought was too much and the doctor miscoded it, I could deal with all of that, you know, kind of like a lawyer handles all your legal matters. As your insurance broker, I handle all of your insurance matters. And I think that takes a lot of the stress off of people's plates, because the typical experience seems to be that you purchase a plan from somebody and then you can never get in touch with them again, you know? So that's the exact opposite of what I offer.
So what's one of the bigger misconceptions you run into with your clients, and maybe even prospective clients, as far as what it is that you do for them? Like, what are the big oversights where they're like, nah, this, you know, they kind of have this view of what you're doing, and that's not actually it?
I think the biggest misconception about health insurance is that you can just do it yourself. And you can, don't get me wrong. But, you know, I always like to tell clients that in order just to be able to talk to you, I have to take a 40-hour pre-licensing course and pass the state exam and go through background checks and fingerprinting and do certifications for each exchange and carrier training and continuing education. Like, it's a lot of work just to be able to discuss it with you.
Right.
And it's kind of crazy to think that you could just walk into it once a year and be like, yeah, I can figure this out. You know, everything changes so much. There's so many specific terms. There's all kinds of network stipulations. Like, it's so helpful to have somebody there to be able to just ask questions to and have them answer professionally. And it doesn't cost anything. You know, I guess that's the other big misconception, is that I'm making some kind of big money off this.
Right.
It doesn't change the price if you use me, right? You're going to pay the same thing either way. So it's whether or not you're giving what portion the insurance company would normally give to me, you're just letting them keep it, you know? So there's no downside to it. I guess what is the main misconception? It's like, why do I need a broker? You know what I mean?
So what part of the whole process is the thing that you love most about what it is you're doing now?
Helping people, honestly. Like, even a lot of the time I don't, you know, for things that I don't make any money on, like helping somebody sign up for Medicaid or get an expensive medication covered at a reasonable cost. That's the stuff that's the most fulfilling to me. You know, I can give you countless examples, but I had a client just the other day that I was just speaking to his parents randomly out in the world. And, I mentioned that I was a health insurance broker, and they were like, oh, well, it must be fake because our son just got diagnosed with mouth cancer and he doesn't know what to do. He doesn't have insurance. He was working a corporate job and he left to start his own business. And then like as soon as that happened, then he got this cancer and freaking out, we're panicking. So, I got in touch with them and helped him sign up for Medicaid and figure out his assets and get the application organized in a way that he would get approved. And they were able to get everything covered, and he can't talk now. So, because he's going through this therapy. So he calls me when he needs somebody to advocate for him or speak to the doctors or the insurance companies or Medicaid or whatever. Wow. Like, I don't get paid for that, but I'm happy to do it. And that's what I get the most out of personally.
Yeah. If you could give, because it sounds like you're doing well right now. If you met somebody that was kind of at the beginning stages of kind of breaking into that world of perhaps they're doing the same exact thing, or perhaps they're just getting into entrepreneurship where they're having to think about those things like marketing and getting business and sales, what's a piece of advice that you've learned over these years that you would give that person?
Network. Network and establish a local presence, right? It's really tempting to try and like build a website and gather a lot of clients from everywhere, all over the country and everything. But if you can really dial into your local area and master your local network, and for me, the hospitals and the doctors and the different health networks and things like that, it helps a lot because it lets you put a personal touch on, and it lets you build a brand that people can recognize. And, it takes a little bit more time that way.
Sure, yeah.
But I think that it's a better long-term approach.
Yeah. So you do some stuff on YouTube, from what I understand. Is that company related? Is that something separate?
It's just personal, gaming stuff.
Yeah. So, tell me about your YouTube personal gaming stuff. I want to hear about it.
I consider myself a teacher, right? Just in general. So I like to play games, but I don't like to feel like I'm wasting my time.
That's fair.
Right?
You got to justify it, right?
Yeah, exactly. So what I find is that when I play with other people, I tend to be teaching a lot. So that led me into, maybe I should just record this, and YouTube is a funny beast because it's a social media site, but it's also just no interaction between people for the most part, right? Like they're not talking to each other. They're just watching the videos and clicking like or share or anything like that. So I find the analytical piece of it very interesting too, because I love to do data and statistics and evaluating things from that. And YouTube really lends itself to that.
Yeah. So is any of that kind of like marketing or exposure idea bled over into what you do on the health side, or not really?
Not yet, but honestly, I've been thinking about it. I've been really tempted to just start up a sort of inside health insurance, from my perspective, just sort of like a podcast approach of speaking about, the way that I see the insurance industry and the healthcare industry and the things that I've learned and the stories that I have. So, I think that I can bring a lot of the stuff that don't get me wrong, I don't have a huge YouTube channel.
Sure.
I get a couple of thousand subscribers and I get tens of thousands of views on videos every once in a while, I think I could probably bring that same sort of thing over to my professional side. It's just, it's funny because I kind of find the same thing with the gaming sort of thing, is that when you take your hobby and you make it into your job, then it takes a lot of the fun out of it. Takes a lot of joy out. But I just wonder how it works the other way. You take your job and you kind of make it a hobby, like something to explore for sure.
So if somebody wanted to get in contact with you, wanted to find you, they were watching and they thought what you were saying is interesting, how could they do that?
Well, probably the easiest thing to do is just go on Google and look up David Cohen HealthMarkets, right? Okay. And then my Google business profile will come right up there. But I also have a Facebook page and all the, Nextdoor and all the different, I'm trying to think of
social media.
Yeah, whatever the ways that you search for people online for
search engine
services. Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, even if you just use AI, you can find me. I have a pretty decent online presence, or you can go to healthmarkets.com/DL Cohen. Middle name is Lewis. So it's pretty easy to find me online generally, Facebook page too.
Okay.
But yeah, most of my business comes from direct referrals, from networking, from other clients, people that word of mouth, that sort of thing, and it makes it a lot easier for me. That was one of the biggest challenges that I sort of faced with the whole telemarketing part of it, is at some point I'm going to have to ask you for your social security number and your credit card number and stuff like that. So that's a lot of a higher hill to climb when you're not getting a referral from somebody that's already used you, that had a good experience.
Yeah. Well, hopefully we've humanized you a little bit, David. We loved having you on the show. This has been David Cohen with HealthMarkets, and like always, we are the Chapter One Podcast.